Today I want to share with you the test results for Pyrrhus, and it ain't looking good. I sat down with Yoda808, the strongest player by power in Rise of Kingdoms, who maxed out Pyrrhus and also went and got the relic from the museum. And the bad news is, he ain't that good. The good news is, hey, you don't have to put sculptures into him if you don't want to. Stick around in this video for the things you need to know about Pyrrhus. And, oh yeah, we have an Alexander the Great and Constantine relic to talk about. Let's get it going. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and when Pyrrhus landed in game, I thought that his power level looked pretty pushed for an early game commander, but I didn't think he'd hold a role in the end game. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why that turned out to be true. I'll share with you what about his kit, his skills, looked unimpressive to me in the beginning, and turns out it really is unimpressive. And then we'll go over the test results. Oh, and somewhere in between, I also want to talk about the new Constantine and Alexander the Great relics, which I mean, like, they're cool, but they really don't change anything. Now, for those of you who are already subscribed to the channel, you kind of knew my thoughts already on the skills for Pyrrhus, but if you want, you can use the timestamps in the description to jump to any part of the video, and if you haven't already subscribed, consider subscribing now for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos designed to help you get value and smash your enemies. Let's jump right into it. Pyrrhus. Why is it that I didn't think he was going to be particularly strong in the end game? In the early game, I think he could be cool. He could do some stuff. But the reason that I think he's unimpressive in the late game is that his damage factor is abysmal. He's missing 1,000 damage factor. And also, he does all this stuff with boosting his normal attack. But remember what normal attack represents. It's two sides to this coin. On the one side, it's your punching power in the sort of white number toward the person you're directly targeting. But on the other side of the coin, normal attack is also boosting the damage you deal when people directly target you. So this 20% boost, I mean, you get half the benefit when you target somebody else and nobody's targeting you, but you only really start to benefit if Pyrrhus is getting targeted, okay? Now, he also gives more normal attack damage if you're outside of territory. Cool. When you launch normal attacks, you have a chance to get a shield. Well, I mean, that's cool, but it doesn't really scale. Like, it's always a 10% chance. You know, when an enemy targets you and there's a 10% chance, at least it can kind of scale up. Bunch of people are hitting you, then you're getting lots of shields, depending on how long that internal cooldown is. In addition, taking less skill damage is really good. Actually, the fourth skill is really good. And lastly is the expertise skill requires someone to be targeting you. Whenever this commander's troop is hit with a normal attack, it has a 10% chance to reduce the attacking troop's attack by 30% for 3 seconds. This is the kind of skill I said would scale up with the number of people hitting you, because you could fire this off really, really fast. But the problem is it has an internal cooldown of 8 seconds, which is a really long internal cooldown. So all this to say, and why are we reviewing this? The best Pyrrhus can possibly do is in these duels we're going to show you, because he's getting the full benefit of these normal attack boosts because he's being targeted. He's actually having this skill apply. In regular field fighting, all the time when you're not getting targeted, he's not doing area of effect damage. He's not really enhancing the commander he's paired with. He's not really doing much of anything, okay? So we got problems with Pyrrhus, and those problems don't end here. If we make our way over to the museum, we can see that Pyrrhus in the end game gets a little buff. Now that buff is 15% defense and 5% skill damage. The problem is, in a world where commanders do 2,700 damage factor, he is still only doing 1,400 damage factor. So this Pyrrhus relic doesn't cut it from the museum. Now, on the topic of relics that don't make the cut, yesterday we got Alexander the Great and also Constantine in the museum, and although I am so hyped for that, the 10% defense and 3% normal attack damage reduction really doesn't change the calculus, in my opinion, on Alexander the Great. I wasn't using him, I won't be using him, and he's great, pun not intended, but he's not good enough, in my opinion, not to be meta. Can you use him if you have him? Of course you can. Should you get this relic if you're using him? Obviously you should. But what I'm saying is that against endgame meta players, this is not where you want to be, okay? If you have Alex, I'm not saying you can't use him. I'm just saying you got to plan to upgrade off of him, because this wasn't enough of a buff to say, wow, I'd use him over some other option. And what other option would I much rather prefer in most circumstances? It's probably just Mehmed. Mehmed is strangely powerful, and especially with his double relic, he still maintains, I think, the most viable museum buffed commander, with the exception of perhaps Minamoto, where actually 60% of stats is a pushed power level that he does work, and he's got a debuff on his 4th skill. The other commander that got a little buff, and I immediately snapped this off, is the Constantine relic. That's not to say that Constantine is field viable. That's not to say that this relic is particularly good or bad. I mean, 20% attack and 5% normal attack damage is fine. I use him in Canyon, and so of course I'm going to take this for a better Canyon team. And that was the beginning and end of my thinking. I snapped it off. I won't think twice about it. He's not field viable. No chance, in my opinion. He's not doing nearly enough to be field viable. But the 5% normal attack boost and the 20% infantry attack is pretty nice. And oh my god, do I need to turn off screen flicker. Now, in order to do our testing today, Yoda808 and I stepped into an Ark of Osiris practice match. And we did this testing without equipment. Now, I don't like testing without equipment, and people always hem and haw about it. But the reality is that if you want to test a lot of combos, you either eat a fat repair bill, or you do it in a practice match and you just don't put on equipment, okay? And then you can try lots of different combos and see, is there a viable combo for Pyrrhus? And I don't think equipment is the difference between Pyrrhus being viable or not viable, because both sides are not using equipment. There's no armaments in practice matches, so we don't have to worry about imbalances in the armaments. What you're seeing is the raw potential of this commander, unchanged by any of the armaments and any of the equipment. And first up, you know it's bad news, because we used Sargon with Pyrrhus, battling into Nevsky and Joan. Sargon is the best single-target infantry commander in the game. He is the best dueling commander, possibly in the game, compared to any other commander. And paired with Pyrrhus, who only cares about being in a duel, and that's his best situation, it is bad that he is losing to cavalry. 23,000 to 28,000. This is a bad sign. Then we tried Boudica with Zhuge Liang. 24,700, we'll call it 25,000 to 29,000. Okay, we used Sargon with Pyrrhus against Boudica Zhuge Liang. Now, we would expect archers to win, and this result is not a blowout. We've certainly seen way worse, but remember, this is like the absolute best Pyrrhus will ever do, paired with Sargon, and also in this duel context. Continuing on, okay? Sargon and Skippy Prime. 21,000 sevs to 28,500 sevs. This is brutal, okay? This is brutal. And basically we did these 3 tests and we were like, okay, so Pyrrhus is not viable. And I get that it's only 3 tests. Don't worry, we'll do some more. But when you think about, what Pyrrhus is offering, he's offering literally nothing of value and utility. Whereas Skippy Prime is doing an AoE debuff, AoE shielding, instant proc damage over time, okay? You've got Boudica doing big fat debuffs. Zhuge Liang, huge AoE debuffs, huge AoE damage. Pyrrhus doing literally nothing. You've got Joan Prime, huge buffs, rage, damage, Nevsky, defense reduction. Pyrrhus doing literally nothing. Pyrrhus is not a commander I want to use in the endgame. He isn't. Continuing on. We wanted to see if we could really meme all over Pyrrhus over here and just try Freddy with no relic. So my Freddy has no relic, and we ended up losing pretty big. So at this point, we're just trolling, okay, with Pyrrhus and seeing if there's some other gold key commander who does as good or better. That's what we're trying to do, is like, could you have gotten the same duel result with a different commander? And then we used Caesar. This is Caesar with 1 level to his relic, not 2. So if I put 2 relics on Caesar, I would have won this report. So double relic Caesar would beat Pyrrhus in a duel, and that, I mean, this tells you the majority of what I feel like you need to know about Pyrrhus's power level. Of course, there is more that we tested, so hang on, we're not done yet. But I thought this test in particular was really insightful because it just shows you that, like, okay, like even with a single level of all damage here, I could get another 10% all damage on Julius Caesar. The Sargon Caesar combo is not even a good combo. Okay, this is not even a good combo. You could just throw in Caesar, and I've been talking about the virtues of Caesar for a very long time. And, you know, why mess around with Pyrrhus? You can just use Caesar, man. You can use him with any troop type you want. Okay? I mean, he's good with cavalry. He's good with archers-ish. I don't know. They care too much about skill damage. But, like, the point is that for the folks that are like, I'm going to be a Pyrrhus main. I mean, not that anyone really should have been saying that unless you're in the early game. Anyways, let's continue on. Now we've got Skippy Prime and Pyrrhus. And this is against Nevsky and Joan. And you'd kind of expect this to be worse than the Sargon result because Sargon is the best infantry duelist, right? And that's exactly what happened. 20,500 to 28,500. GG. We do it again. Budakazuge Leong with Skippy and Pyrrhus. 22,000 to 32,000. The gap is widening. And then we do it again. Okay? Sargon with Skippy on my side, 19,000 to 28,500. Big yikes. So what does this mean for Pyrrhus? Poor Pyrrhus. Well, you know, look, in the early game, I think he's going to be really cool. I think he's going to have some very powerful roles. And does he kind of hang in the end game? I mean, yeah, he kind of hangs in the late game. Like, it's not truly miserable, right? Like, you saw the report I did with Freddy, no relic on him. That was pretty bad, of course. You know, the report would probably look a little bit different with a double relic on Freddy, which is available, which would have offered me 40% attack and 15% less skill damage taken. Yikes. So I would say that Pyrrhus's power level, like, is probably not far off, actually, from other gold key commanders. And in the end game, I would prefer Caesar. I would prefer, let's see here, Mehmed, for sure. Okay, Mehmed, for sure. Minamoto, definitely, right? So I think that Pyrrhus will serve an early game role as like a KVK1 rally, potentially, because I think he does cool stuff in that regard, right? Maybe you pair with Martel, and that's an interesting rally, Pyrrhus Martel. And I bet people are going to have a lot of fun using this commander. But do I think you need to rush him if you're not a whale in the early game? I don't think you need to rush him. If you are a big whale, could you rush him and have a damn good time? I do think that you could. And I do think that you can get some value out of him in the late game until you get the rest of your commanders sorted out. But I don't think he is an early game rush, which means what should the rest of us do? Okay? Even for me, like, what should I be doing? I got a lot of commanders in this game. What should I be doing with Pyrrhus? Well, there is actually something very important that you should be doing. And you'll take him to 4 stars. That I think is important and reasonable. And look, I suppose I could do it right now because we have skill lock in the game, and that's a thing I could do. So what the heck? We'll take him to 4 stars, okay? And what you should do with your Pyrrhus is that when you're in a KVK that has his skills as a Bastion skill, then you deploy your skill points and try to get that skill. Do you see what I'm saying? So I can take him to 4 stars, as I was describing, and I don't care how much experience I put onto him. Theoretically, you could try to shoot the moon over here and not put as much experience. I suppose I can still show you kind of what that looks like, okay? So we'll just bang this out real quick. And we could take him up a little bit. So what you try to do, if you want to be really sneaky, you wouldn't even do 6 together like this, because this is probably going to crit. You could do them one at a time. Yeah, I ended up critting. And I kind of don't care. But you can use a combination of the sort of special stars to be level 10, technically, and 4 stars. But whatever. Let's just take him to 30. 4 stars. Okay. Good enough. And once we've done that, we can go in, and if we were in a KVK that had auxiliary skills like Orleans, which I don't plan to queue for until they look at the feasibility of garrisoning in that KVK, by the way. Oh, I didn't get to 4 stars. Hello? Okay, whatever. Here we go. Good. Okay, from here, I guess I didn't need to waste a couple stars, but who cares? I have plenty. So from here, what you'll do is, you know, if this skill shows up in a KVK, you'll go in, you'd skill lock, you'd hit confirm, and you'd hope that the points land over here. Don't even bother maxing the first skill. You know, don't even bother. If you're not using him in the field, which I wouldn't plan to, if he shows up in a bastion or an auxiliary skill, like, yeah, this is pretty good. 10% health, 15% march speed, 20% normal attack. I'd use that skill for sure. If you get really lucky, you swing it like this. Okay, 4th skill. All right, hey, 20% less skill damage taken and 10% more damage dealt when I have a shield. Yo, I could find a use for that, right? So if some of these skills became auxiliary skills, that's how I'd use your Pyrrhus. But otherwise, my rating for Pyrrhus would be that he has been overrated and overhyped a little bit. Not to say that he's terrible, but compared to your other options, and especially the future of what we'll see in this game, he doesn't hang. And that's just the way that new civilization commanders are designed to be. I mean, it is possible we'll at some point get the next Mehmed, okay? And that would be pretty freaking cool, okay? And his kit somehow is still really good. I think it's the combination of, like, bonus skill damage plus enough health plus area of effect damage that's not great, but it's kind of good enough, plus a little bit of troops, makes him good enough as a kind of amplifying commander, enhancing what somebody else can do, that you compare him with a lot of different commanders, like Nevsky, Skippy Prime, anywhere you would have used Honda Takatsu. So I suppose it was reasonable to be hyped and think maybe we'll get the infantry equivalent of Mehmed, but I would say Pyrrhus is probably not that. If you enjoyed the vid, do me the honor of throwing a like on here and consider subscribing. Tonight, I'm going to be live streaming, and I think I'm going to just max the new Cav Commander literally today and stream testing him. So if you want to see that, again, it's worth subscribing. If you want to see my thoughts on these commanders, by the way, I'll have a card in the end screen for my review of the new cavalry commanders. Dude, they are hype. And if you're looking for more information about infantry specifically, card will be in the end screen for that one as well in just a second.